Well, it's been a while since we worked on this Pinto. We had a lot of other projects going on here, a lot of things in and out, and the weather's changing. So we finally got the Pinto inside, and we've got to work on the driver's side motor mount. We're going to take the solid mounts out and put rubber mounts in. So the first thing we got to do is get this alternator out of the way. Got the upper hose off, and like everything else, the alternator is a little bit tricky because instead of a bolt going through that you could unscrew and pull the whole thing off, there's a big long piece of all thread in there. So you got to take 12 other things apart first before you get at that to get the thing out of there. So we'll get up underneath and take some more bolts out, see if we can get that alternator out of there. All right, finally got our alternator out of there. Was quite the chore because this was what they used to mount the alternator. So we had to unscrew that whole thing out of the cylinder head. We're going to have to replace that with a proper bolt. And so now what we're going to have to do is take all of this mount stuff that he's got in here, mounted engine mount on the timing cover, a 5/16 stud all the way out there, a couple more down below, everything hanging off the timing cover. Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. So our mount now bolts here and here, I believe, on the cylinder head, and comes over and sits on a biscuit on the frame. So now we've got to get all of these brackets and things out of here, all the way down to the frame, and make a new one. Well, we had to use our trusty old bandsaw here to cut this mount bracket down. Hopefully we measured enough times and cut it in the right place. Don't need that, but this piece will now get welded to the flat plate that we bolted to the frame rails, and the biscuit will sit in there, and hopefully Bob's your uncle. So basically that's how that mount sets there. Got a little rubber cushion on the bottom, and the big head of the bolt. The bolt has shoulders on. This fits down over, and then the motor mount bracket would sit on this rubber here, and then this washer and nut go on top of the mount that's on the motor. So what we got to do is bolt it all up in there and get this over next to the plate, and see if we can tack it in place. And we got the close-up view from underneath here now. We've got our plate, 1/4-inch plate, mounted to the frame rail, and that's pretty well braced. Kind of hard to see there, but it's all tied into the front hoop, and then there's a cross member here going across the front. So we've got our 1/4-inch plate here. We just got some 3 bolts here in the bottom that really aren't doing much besides filling up holes, but they're in there. We've got a 1/2-inch bolt here going all the way through, and we're going to try to get another bolt up in here. We've marked it through, but we're going to have to see where it comes out on the inside around that bracket. So we've got our rubber biscuit up here, we've got our mount on the motor, and we're butted up against the plate nicely. So take it all out of there one more time and see if we marked that other hole correctly, and then drill it, put it all back in, and then we're going to have to tack weld it in a couple of spots here just to hold it till we take the whole thing back out and weld it properly. Okay, got the view from the top side. We're in and out for the umpteenth time, just checking to make sure everything fits and lines up. See that our biscuit is just a little close to the plate there, but that's the way it falls, so we'll see how it ends up, but we could grind a flat on that biscuit if we had to. There's a lot of biscuit hanging out of the mount there, and we had to get a little creative here where it mounts to the block because our alternator mounts there normally. So what we did is put a 7/16 course stud into the block, and then we got this connector nut that screwed on over the stud to hold the motor mount in place, and then our alternator bolt will screw into the other half of the connector nut and hopefully mount the alternator. But that's a project for a little later. We're also going to have to look at reorienting the dipstick tube a little bit. Little things, 5-minute jobs. Okay, we got our bracket welded to our bracket. Of course, this bolts to the frame rail. Engine biscuit sits on that. I got a nice weld around. Not ours. Had it done. We don't weld like that here, unfortunately. So we got one more hole to drill and tap, and then some paint, and we can throw that on the frame rail and throw the biscuit in and see how it all fits. Okay, we got the left side frame mount bolted in there, sandwiched in there all the way through the frame rail into the roll bar structure, and then this biscuit will sit on top of there, and then we have to put our mount on the engine to sit on that, and we'll be looking good. What I'm going to do is get a couple of studs to screw in these holes here rather than bolts. I think that'll be a better deal. We got the passenger side mount in there, bolted to the head and bolted to the frame. And driver's side, same. We did something a little different than the stock biscuits, because I really didn't like the bolts coming up through from the bottom. So we put bolts down through from the top, but we had to make some spacers to go on those bolts, some sleeves, if you will, because the original bolts are like a shoulder bolt. So we got some stock and put it in the lathe and made up some 7/16 by 5/8 sleeves, about 2 inches long. That centers everything up, and drop the bolts down through, put the nuts on the bottom, and I think that's going to work. It's a lot better than what was in there. We're going to have to get back in there now and refit the alternator, and we've got to put some shorter bolts in the timing cover since we don't have all those aluminum brackets going everywhere. But we'll get there little by little. Well, we managed to get a transmission mount to work. It was a reasonably stock piece, supposed to fit a T10, but the bolt pattern was a little different, so we had to modify that, but it fit saddled down over our cross member, and got a single bolt there. So now at least We're mounted 3 points in rubber, 2 in the front and 1 at the back. And I think that's going to be a lot better.